From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Troll dolls.
If you've got a tip for Melissa, your deepest secret, your darkest fears, the elephant in the room, and no, I mean the giant elephant in your living room and how the hell it got there. Tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host. Rummaging through your trash on garbage night looking for body parts is just her way of saying, howdy neighbor, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. I am not much of a dumpster diver, but yeah, I guess I do what I have to do.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
If I think there's a part, hanging around. Or happening. That was one of the things a guy I dated a long time ago. I just wanted to be friends, and he wanted to be more. And so he said he stopped his car in the parking lot at my apartment complex, and he goes, "All right, look, are we hanging or are we happening?" I was like, you old honey dripper, you.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah.
That's quite a wordsmith.
He was. And I do have to say he had hair like a troll doll. He had a lot of hair. And it was long and he would wear ball caps a lot because his hair would stick up like a troll doll. But the reason I said troll dolls because the story makes me... makes me giggle. Apparently Hasbro is trying to recall some troll dolls that were released with the DreamWorks Trolls World Tour, Giggle and Sing, and the doll is named Poppy.
Well, first of all, I love the name.
Yeah, Poppy. The
Giggle and Sing.
Giggle and Sing. And when she has two buttons under her little skirt, and one's more of a navel-ish sort of button, and you press that, and she says, "How about a hug?" But there's another button.
Oh, I was going to say, that's what trolls do, kind of, right?
No,
no,
they don't say. And maybe if you're in a DreamWorks movie as a troll, but typically no. There's another button a little lower, in a little private area.
Oh, no, you've got to be kidding.
And you press the second button, and it says, "Wee!" And... Oh, which if you press a button a little lower on me, I say wee and oh. Now some parents,
wait a minute,
as you can imagine,
you got to go back.
Yeah.
What does it say exactly?
Wee and oh. Wee.
Last week you got me with the shooting and the dick, and now you're just obsessed with private parts.
I'm not. This is Hasbro. I have nothing to do with this troll doll named Poppy who has a G-spot and a clitoris. I don't know what the problem is, but anyway, some parents
just wants a little Poppy.
Yeah, Poppy is a very happy little girl, and some parents' organizations are trying to get an online petition, which they have about 150,000 signatures so far.
That's probably not unexpected.
Right. They say, what will this toy make our innocent, impressionable children think? That it's fun when someone touches your private area?
Well,
yes. Yes, ma'am. Usually. Depends, I guess. Apparently, they're thinking that's going to, motivate pedophiles. And, anyway.
Yeah.
I love this, that a Hasbro spokesperson named Julia Duffy told CNN, this feature was designed to react when the doll was seated. Yes.
Seated on what?
Right. But we recognize the placement of the sensor may be perceived as inappropriate. This was not intentional, and we're happy to provide consumers with a replacement Poppy doll, minus a clitoris, of similar value through our consumer care team. She still has a G-spot, though. We're in the process of removing the item for purchase.
Yeah, they'll just sell it to all the adult toy stores all throughout Hollywood.
Oh, Poppy. Wee. So anyway, that was sometimes, things in the news make you giggle. And I loved troll dolls as a kid. They were naked, typically. They didn't have any genitals at all. And they just had funky ass hair and big eyes and weird little noses.
Yeah, those are the ones I'm familiar with.
Yeah, they didn't wear clothing. So the minute you put clothing on them, much like in the Garden of Eden, once you're ashamed of your body, you put clothing on them and then you put a clitoris button.
Then everything's about
And
sex.
then everything is just about pressing the wee button. Wee.
The wee button.
Oh, sorry. It's actually spelled Wheeee. That's how they spell it.
They call it the wee button.
The wee button.
Because she's sitting down.
Wee. No, I guess... Yeah, I don't know why it was supposed to only go off when she sat down.
Somebody at Hasbro
somebody's fired.
Is getting their ass kicked out of there so fast.
I don't know what's happening, but
I guarantee it's some young intern who does not give a flying crap about his or her job.
How did it get past?
And
you got to have so many levels of, well, this is the model and this is, like a prototype, and then this passes all the inspections, and you press her belly button and she says, how about a hug? And you press her clitoris and she says, wee.
It's somebody on the manufacturing line that just probably said, yeah, hey, Jack, guess what I did?
I don't know. I mean, I love Miss Duffy's explanation that it's only supposed to be a sensor when she's seated. Like reverse cowgirl on a Ken doll, or I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna set that aside because that's
maybe there's a Pappy doll that's designed.
Poppy and Pappy.
It's when she's sitting on Pappy. I don't know.
Let's G.I. Joe because he has the kung fu grip.
Oh, that's right.
Kung fu grip. How many of us? Yeah. Anyway, setting this aside. So we have tried for a very long time to get a hold of this guest, and he is a sweet, kind man, but he is very busy now and has a family medical emergency. So we just decided to go ahead and talk about him in third person. But if he ever, has his schedule clear to come on the podcast, he is a sweet, wonderful man. And I heard him on a podcast that I adore called Crime Scene. The host is Jordan Fenster. And that podcast is no longer going, but he has another podcast that he does. It's very interesting, more pop culture and about what's going on today. But Crime Scene might have had 15 or 20 episodes, not a lot, but they're all terrific. And one of the interviews was with John Thompson, who is now the head of the National Animal Care and Control Association. And he's the executive director. He took over that in January of 2019. But before that, he was the head of the National Sheriff's Association. For many years, he was the CEO and executive director of the National Sheriff's Association. Now, he was a police officer and a sheriff in his jurisdiction in Virginia and in Maryland and different parts of the East Coast. He is a vet. He was an animal handler in the military. He is an interesting guy, and he calls himself a late bloomer, coming around to how important animals are. And then he may be a late bloomer, but he got really quickly on the fast track and how important animals are in our lives for a lot of us. And even if you are maybe in a living situation where you're unable to have a pet, the people that at least care for and appreciate animals, you get a sense and a feel for who they are. You don't have to be an animal lover, but what you can't be is an animal abuser, because that leads to something else, many other things, which we'll talk about. So talking about John, he, as I said, he was a dog handler in the military, and he said it was like a job to him. He, would train dogs, and then you get, moved to a different base, or the dog goes on to do something else, and you get a new dog, and it's a new job. And he enjoyed what he did, but it just didn't affect him very much. It was just a job. He didn't have a dog, didn't want a dog. When he was in different parts of law enforcement, he would get animal cruelty cases, reported to him, and he would report them immediately to animal control, because he was like, this isn't something that law enforcement should handle. So his mind and his body and his soul changed focus when his wife, who was a teacher, was attacked by one of her special education students and had PTSD and trauma and had gotten some care at home. And it was suggested that she have a companion at home with her if he was going to be working and their children were, going to school out of the house. So he got her this little, I can't tell, he looks like he might be a Cocker Spaniel mix, but his name was Polo, Mr. Polo. They called him Mr. P. And Mr. Polo was John Thompson's wife's dog, her service dog. And he, was like, whatever, we have a dog, that's great. And he found himself and his daughter, who is in the legal world, she said, it was pretty clear that every time my dad would come home from work, he'd have a stressful day. Mr. P just wanted to see him and spend time with him. And now I think it's a slower kind of a thing than this, but Mr. Thompson says the day we bonded was when this little dog's looking up at me like, I want to go for a walk. And I was like, all right, we'll go for a walk. So he takes the dog out for a walk and he loses track of time. And he said he taught him, to jump over creeks, and they rolled around in the mud and they were having a great time. And he finds himself 5 miles away from his house
that's nice.
Before he knows it, he and Mr. Polo have taken a 5-mile hike. And he calls his wife and said, can you come to get us? And his wife shows up to pick her husband and her service dog up. And she says, what have you done to my dog? He's covered in mud and he's just probably had the time of his life. And John Thompson was thinking that's the day that they bonded. I think it's slower than that, but if that's how it worked for him, he is an unusual case. Again, like I said, he calls himself a late bloomer. So Mr. Polo basically became his dog right away. And they were inseparable until Mr. Polo passed about 1.5 years ago. But he is the impetus. Mr. Polo is the impetus for John sort of becoming who he is. That and a combination of an article, a paper that his daughter was writing for a law enforcement agency, showing the connection between animal abuse and moving on to violence towards humans. And Mr. Thompson said he's reading, his daughter was like, can you please check over this paper I'm submitting? And he read it and he said he's sitting there with tears rolling down his cheeks because it dawned on him, like, what if something like this happened to Mr. Polo? And I don't want to say one little dog changed the trajectory of someone's life, but that's kind of what happened. So when Mr. Thompson retires from the National Sheriff's Association, he immediately becomes the executive director of the National Animal Care and Control Association. But while he's still with the National Sheriff's Association, he is instrumental in getting the FBI to acknowledge, finally, the connection between animal abuse and abuse and violence against humans.
Wait, it took the FBI that long?
2016.
Oh my God, I thought that was well established.
Well, you and I both, because I don't care who you are in the true crime world, and if you don't think that, if you work for the behavioral analysis unit and you don't think the McDonald triad is applicable, I'm just going to tell you you're full of shit. And you can call it old-fashioned, and I don't care. I'm still a big believer in the McDonald triad, which is, a paper from the early 1960s, 1963, I think, and a medical paper, a psychology paper. And the three, the triad showed that certain things that happened when you're young can foretell what you may be like as a grown-up. And I believe the three. I mean, I unfortunately have 2 of the 3, but the animal part is, so in uresis, bedwetting, and it's supposed to be after the age of 5. And I wet the bed till I was 6. Now, granted, I ended up having a procedure and I had kidney issues, but it doesn't matter.
It's not the same.
I went to bed till I was 6. Fire starting. I love fires. I used to light matches and watch them burn. Never started a fire and, killed anyone. I'm not an arsonist, but fascinated by fires. I think a lot of people are. And animal cruelty, which I pick bugs up from our house and put them outside and sob copiously when animals are hit on the road, etc. As producer Mark can tell you, I don't take
it's serious, folks. It's really serious.
I don't take it well.
No, she's stopped her car, gotten out of her car to move dead animals out of the street and then pet them and tell them they are beautiful.
Now you're going to make me cry.
Well, you do.
So, growing up in rural northern Kentucky, I had dogs and cats, and my grandfather raised beagles for hunting, and we had an English setter named Gypsy, and my mom was a cat lover, my grandparents were dog lovers, and I had a wonderful lab who died of distemper, which she had gotten at the vet's office when she went to get her distemper shot. And so she was pretty young when she passed, a little over a year, and I didn't want another animal after that because I didn't think I could handle the grief. So it took me in my 20s before I, moved out on my own and had cats because I lived in apartments, and didn't get another dog until producer Mark and I were, I don't even think we were married. Were we married or just engaged?
I think we were married.
We were married. Okay. So in the early 2000s, we adopted Pony Boy, and he was just the sweetest boy. And then we got Belladonna because I thought, oh, Pony needs a friend. He didn't really. He would have been fine on his own.
Yeah, but it was still nice having two.
And, Belladonna was one of the loves of our lives, and we lost both of them last year, and we have Siren now. I know we don't have kids, so the joy that animals bring to our lives is something I would never trade. So the fact that it's taken until 2016 before the FBI actually makes concrete connections, it is overwhelming to me. September of 2014, then FBI Director James Comey said in a speech in Atlanta, we're going to put this together and we're going to study it, and it's going to take, years to get this kind of data built up. He gave it 5 years actually, which was interesting. He said 2021, but I think they've come up with things, and it's moving quickly. And John Thompson is really a catalyst, and Mr. Polo is the catalyst for John. So John Thompson lobbies the FBI to really add animal cruelty crimes to its National Crime Report, which it does every year. So the Bureau of Criminal Statistics Management Unit says that cruelty to animals is a precursor to larger crimes, and it's really bigger than I even could have imagined. So we know that in the history of studying serial killers, a lot of them started with animal cruelty. Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, even David Berkowitz. And, if you're harming an animal, there's a good chance you're going to hurt a human. And this is the very bizarre statistic that I didn't get. I just assumed if you abuse animals, you go on to killing a human, whether you be a serial killer or just out of anger or rage. But they have found the connection between domestic violence and also terrorism, which I was completely shocked that...
Whoa, wow. Terrorism?
Terrorism. If you're cruel to an animal, more than likely there's domestic violence going on in your home, whether it's you abusing a spouse or partner, or whether you are abusing your family and then perhaps a child who doesn't. It's 97% of animal cruelty cases are perpetrated by adults, but 3% is by children. So, if you are in a household where someone is abusing a domestic partner or even the kids in the household, sometimes the children act out and abuse an animal because they have nowhere to go. So it's a big deal. Studies done and women who actually got out of situations like that and were in shelters, 22% of them didn't want to leave, not because of children. They could get their kids out, but they didn't want to leave their pets behind because they thought their abuser would also abuse or kill their pet. But this is the part that's fascinating. I had zero idea that animal abuse could be a precursor to terrorism. There were 2 instances in 2017 where Homeland Security found ISIS supporters who abused animals for various reasons prior to their arrest, and they were plotting terrorist attacks.
Wow, that is really something.
In 2017, a family member of a U.S. citizen notified law enforcement that his relative possessed a weapon and was intending to kill the family dog. So officers responded. They found a large knife wound on the dog. They took the dog and got him help. But they identified the person and put him into custody. And while he's in custody, he says he justified stabbing his dog because of his religious views. And 5 days before the incident, he posted a photo of the dog on social media with a message that said, "I hope this dog dies soon." When they investigated his residence, he had plans to construct a pressure cooker bomb and leave it in New York City on behalf of ISIS.
Oh, for God's sake, that's fascinating.
I had no idea. I really had no idea. So this information comes from a really interesting website that offers, it's called the First Responders Toolbox, and you can find information online. It's actually part of FBI.gov. It's from the 2019 National Incident-Based Reporting System. It's NIBRS, N-I-B-R-S. It's from the user manual, and you can get it online at fbi.gov/NIBRS, N-I-B-R-S, the National Incident-Based Reporting System user manual. It's really interesting shit. So then Director Comey in 2014 had tried to explain in a talk in Atlanta, look, we need to keep track of this. They started in 2016 because before that, all animal cruelty cases were lumped into something called all other offenses. It's a category in the FBI's crime reporting program. They usually do an annual crime report. But in 2016, they changed the National Incident-Based Reporting System to starting to collect incidents of animal cruelty. And it just became, it became interesting data in my mind. I mean, it's things we probably already know, like the time of day that most animals are abused are the daylight waking hours, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. The top 3 locations where animal cruelty occurs, 75% in the residence, 7% on highways, streets, alleyways, sidewalks, 5% in parking lots and garages. It's, like I said, it's 97% adults, 3% of people who abuse animals are in the range of 11 to 17 years old. And, I know that's where serial killers got started typically in their teens. So this case that was so overwhelming to me because it drives home something I'm just going to keep talking about forever, which is, online sleuthing and armchair detectives and internet sleuths. And I'm sure a lot of people in law enforcement are like, get the fuck out of my investigation. I'm not going to stop. So these things, the internet and people who care are things that are vastly important today. Even more than ever, these things are very, very important. There is the Netflix documentary, Don't Fuck with Cats, where several people in different parts of the country narrow down and find Luca Magnotta, who's a self-proclaimed serial killer, because he was killing cats.
That is a creepy documentary, but it is really well done.
It is well done, and it makes you cheer for these people who have really great tech skills. Like, I don't know how I'm talking to you people right now. I barely know how to use my my cell phone, and I sure the fuck couldn't narrow shit down online. I'm not that good of a sleuth. I'm more of a I need to get gum on the bottom of my shoes, and I will go through a dumpster looking for body parts. But I'm not real good at tech stuff. But God bless the people that are.
The thing is, when you watch the documentary, when I first started watching it, I thought, these people are just weirdos.
Right.
They're just people living in their mom's basement. But as the documentary went on, I started to get a little lump in my throat, because it was like, they're different. They're different. But they really care.
Yeah.
They really care. And they're angels on earth. And sometimes angels are just not like the rest of us. And
right.
They're very, very unique people, but wow, they do good work.
Yeah, they're smart, and they have skills, and they pay attention, and they listen, and they see, and they do. I mean, that's the thing. Narrowing down someone who's going to harm humans after harming animals, because you can figure out the background of where they're shooting a video, where you can narrow down their IP address, where their cell phone pings. Those things are priceless. And I know there are, national agencies that handle that, but I'm telling you what, citizen sleuths, I have such respect right now. And, you tipsters who listen are, my heroes right now, my heroes. So this is a really shitty case, and I am also a little bit shocked that it's a girl. Typically it's males who do this behavior, but it was mid-July of this year. A 19-year-old girl from Kokomo, Indiana, Krystal Sharika Scott, was arrested by the FBI on federal animal cruelty charges because she made animal crush videos. And she had tortured cats, killing them by hanging them, skinning them, decapitating them.
Oh, my God.
One of her Instagram accounts was labeled serial dog killer dude. Serial _dog _killer _dude. She's very masculine looking, but she is a girl. She lives at home with her mom. Her mom was not charged. Her mom professed knowing nothing about this, and even Krystal said her mom knew nothing about it.
How old is Krystal? 19.
Oh,
my God. Oh, God.
It's a very telling thing. I mean, I don't know what to say, because she's a girl, and it's so difficult for me to imagine this. But she made at least 2 Animal Crush videos, and I'll be damned, these amazing citizen sleuths from Boise, Idaho, narrowed down where she was in Kokomo, Indiana. They used things that she shot behind her, and she was cagey, didn't show her face, had a separate phone that she recorded these videos on, would post in advance, I'm going to kill a pregnant Siamese cat later today, and would show videos of her hanging them. And these citizen sleuths were like, we are gonna get her. And they did. They notified the Boise, Idaho Police Department in June and said, we found her. We know where she is. Now, they turned it over to the FBI, who in like 2 days later, June 18th, and they said, we have identified Krystal Scott as this person who is making these videos. The FBI in Indiana is notified, the field office in Indianapolis. And they're like, okay, we have this Kokomo issue. And they notify the Kokomo Police Department. And they look at their records and find that they have been to Krystal Scott's home several times on complaints against animal cruelty starting in May of this year. Neighbors, relatives, other people are like, look, there's something weird going on here. There are even people where she had adopted or paid for cats that she found online for sale who said, I think a cat I sold this woman was used in a video and was killed. She was smart enough to know that when they showed up the first time, she was like, yeah, come on in. They found, like a couple of cats in the freezer. And she was like, I got those and they were already deceased. It was for, research and experiments and things like that. And it's like, oh, okay. She handed him the phone and there was nothing on the phone because she had a separate phone.
Right. But wait a minute. The cop saw frozen cats in her freezer.
And she was like, yeah, it's for research, on what animals die from.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know what you people are talking about. So there's an animal activist in the area who's like, I don't know what's going on, but something really dark's happening here. In April, this animal activist reported finding a dog in a cornfield directly across from Krystal Scott's home. And someone had told her about this dead dog. So she shows up with her scan to microchip it to see if it's some local person's dog that got out. She finds it has no head, no skull, and 1 foot removed.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Krystal Scott walks across the street as this woman has found this dead dog in this cornfield across from her house and says, oh, what happened? Was this dog decapitated? I'm shocked that someone would do that.
Okay.
Right. So she has lots of, aliases and different names on social media, and she would just find people who were selling or giving away animals, pets that they want to make sure they find a good home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she hung a Siamese cat in her basement and said the little shit was still alive, so I had to rehang it.
I'm going to get sick.
Yeah. So, when the Kokomo police report to her house on May 3rd, after numerous reports, like I've said, she gives them the phone that, doesn't have anything on it. And she's like, yeah, sure, you can have this. Now, when they were there, they found all of these, deceased animals, the 2 cats in the freezer. She's like, oh, no, these were dead when I got them, and they just can't link her to any crime right then because there's no proof. She hasn't given them any proof, right?
Still, that's got to be suspicious.
Absolutely. I think they've kept her on the radar. And then these citizen sleuths from, God bless them, from Boise, Idaho.
Now that's remarkable.
Yeah. Are like, look, get her. And they finally, get an affidavit from the FBI and they descend on her home. And she's like, look, I don't know why I do this. I have a good side that loves cats and dogs, but I have a bad side that tells me to commit acts of animal cruelty.
She was, how many months do you think she was away from her first human victim?
That's such a great question, Producer Mark. I don't know, but
I'm gonna wager it's very soon.
Like 6 months, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this Kokomo animal welfare advocate who, had tried to scan the decapitated dog. She's like, look, I have spent countless hours trying to identify her and document what she's done. And these people in Boise, Idaho have done an amazing job of, putting it all together. So they recovered 3 dogs, 12 cats, and several reptiles, none of which showed signs of abuse. They were all taken to the Kokomo Humane Society.
These were all alive and well.
3 dogs, 12 cats, and several reptiles. They got them out of the house. There were, unfortunately, many animal skulls and skeletons and some frozen animals and a small animal in a jar that was floating. And I mean,
okay,
I know the animal advocate from Kokomo said, these cyber sleuths that put things together, I can't believe that they did the work they did, but I'm angry that it took this long. And then she said, I think there must be a mental health issue that causes anyone to do that. And I want her to get the help she needs, but to not be around animals or children or anyone who's vulnerable that she could hurt.
Yeah, I don't see. That's the thing. I think she shouldn't ever be allowed to mix with the human population ever again.
I agree with you.
She's going to start killing people.
Right.
If she's ever released out into the world again, she's a danger. I think, I'm not an expert, but you've done a lot more research on this than I have for sure. Isn't it fairly recognized now that, once they start, they don't stop?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm some old school bitch who wants to make sure the McDonald triad is not put to the side. And someone like John Thompson, who is, pushing hard for animal rights, a guy who calls himself a late bloomer, who one little dog changed his mind where he was just like, oh, animal cruelty cases go to animal control, which now he's the head of animal control. But at the time he was like, oh, that doesn't belong in law enforcement. And now he understands the connection that people who abuse animals at any age are more than likely going to go on to, abuse or have violence against humans, whether it's murder or domestic violence or even domestic terrorism. I had no idea those connections, but if there are those old things that like you can tell a man's heart by how he treats animals. And I truly believe that. I'm not saying everyone has to be an animal lover and everyone has to have a pet, but there is absolutely a soft spot, in my mind for people who do. You may live, like I said, in a situation, like maybe you rent and your landlord doesn't allow pets. I totally get it. It doesn't mean you can't, be kind to animals you meet along the way. It doesn't mean, not everyone has to have a pet in their home. It's a lovely addition to most homes, I truly believe. It's a thing that enhances your life, if you ask me. But I really feel that the people that hurt animals show you who they are. That's why they do it in secret. The mindset of someone who kills or harms an animal and videotapes it while trying to hide their face, so because they know all 50 states have animal cruelty laws of some sort, all 50 states. This is another thing that bothers me, is that it's taken this long to get everyone on the same page. If you think getting people on the same page, different law enforcement agencies for human beings on an investigation, if you think that's tough, try and get different jurisdictions and law enforcement agencies on the same page to protect animals. It's real tough. If you think, trying to get everybody to share information on humans is difficult because of egos or different lines, jurisdictional lines, try and get everybody on the same page about animals. Thank God the FBI is just now getting into this game and understanding that, if you abuse animals, it's a real good precursor that you're going to go on to be a monster to others, animals, humans, eventually even something as large as, a bomb in a large city. It makes sense to me now, but I couldn't even believe that when I read it. And I'd have to say, this one case in Kokomo, at least they're doing things the right way. This small town in Indiana is doing things the right way. The animals they took from Krystal Scott's home, they are keeping them separate and wanted to make sure they were adopted to families that really wanted a new companion in their home, not just people who wanted to adopt a dog that was a pet of this monster abuser. So they don't tell anyone where they came from. All of the animals taken from Krystal Scott's home, except for one reptile, as of the end of July, have been adopted. So that's, the 3 dogs, the 12 cats, and the numerous reptiles, all but one reptile have been adopted to homes where people love them and they are a good fit, and they didn't have to stay in a home with Krystal Scott, who may have done something terrible to them and then may have moved on to human beings. So if you, my beloved tipsters, are cyber sleuths or internet sleuths or armchair detectives, and you know of anyone who is abusing an animal, please contact your local law enforcement or even the FBI, because there is help out there. There is someone who will listen, and you may be frustrated, but you're going to get your point across. And more cowbell.
If you'd like to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.